Welcome everyone to the Tuesday, January 3rd, 2023 City Council meeting. Before we start the meeting, we will have a prayer led by Councilman Fitzwater, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Heavenly Father, thank you for this opportunity to get together again and city business for our citizens. Thank you for bringing us through a beautiful Christmas season and as we start this new year. Pray that you would be with us, watch over us. Pray for traveling mercy as our legislature comes into town to begin their work tomorrow. And pray that you'd watch over them and all the activities going on. We thank you for the city and for all that it means to our state, and we take those activities seriously. Pray that you be with our public safety, our police and fire. I know they were active over the holiday season. We just thank them for their dedication to their service. Pray also that you be with our men and women scattered around the world in military service, keeping us safe, giving us the ability to meet tonight and talk about issues of importance. We thank you for all that you do, and just pray for your name.
Amen. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I will now call the meeting to order, and you can also join us virtually. The link is on the agenda at jeffersoncitymo.gov, and there's also a call-in participation number listed as well. Mrs. Donaldson, roll call, please.
Deacon,
Present.
Fitzwater,
Present.
Hensley,
Present.
Kimna,
Here.
Lester,
Here.
Schreiber,
Present.
Spencer,
Here.
Spicer,
Present.
Ward, here, Wiseman.
Present.
Item 3, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 4, miscellaneous agenda items. I do want to thank Councilman Fitzwater for running the last council meeting while I was joined virtually from afar, so thank you for doing that. Item 5, we have no public hearings. Item 6, appointments by the mayor. We have a reappointment for the Heartland Port Authority. Mrs. Strope.
Thank you. This is a request to reappoint Jeff Earl to the Heartland Port Authority.
All right, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 7, presentations from staff, consultants, and invited guests. We have Mrs. Perry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It was requested by the council that we start including a financial update in the council packet. So this will be the first time we've had this on the agenda. We intend to do this the first council meeting of every month, which would follow the standard presentation of these items by the finance committee. So in the packet, you have a revenue model report. This is the report for the prior fiscal year ending October 31st. It still is not finalized. We are in the process of finishing up all of the year-end transactions before the auditors come into the office next week. But as you can see, over and under projections, this is a standard report for Finance Committee. And I'm not sure what the preference of the council is, if we want to go through these items like we do in Finance Committee, or if you would like to review them and ask any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mrs. Perry. I might start with the Finance Chair, Mr. Councilman Hensley.
Yeah, thanks. Sheila, I mean, my personal opinion is that just sort of a brief run through of each of these pages, maybe not even as in depth as you would normally do without prompting at a finance meeting. And then if any council member has questions or comments, they can stop you during your presentation and you can field them then, if that works for you.
Sure. So the first page in the packet is the summary of the revenue model. It breaks down all of the revenues that we get by categories that council is accustomed to seeing during budget time. Bottom line of this, it will show us the sales tax and use tax that we talked about during the current budget to make sure that we're monitoring that on an ongoing basis. And again, this will break it down by all of the different categories that we would adopt during budget time. Overall, as of the end of fiscal year 22, we stand at $1,636,909 in actual revenue over projected revenue. As you progress through the next 2 pages, those are actually the backup documents for the summary page that we just looked at. Again, broken down by the categories and just lists out all of the individual GL accounts that are within those categories. The memo that is attached is the standard sales tax report that we present at Finance Committee, and it will have this broken down on a regular basis by general sales tax, the capital improvement sales tax, parks sales tax, and the public safety tax. Again, we discussed during budget time the importance of monitoring these and making sure that they're coming in on target, and that would be the intention of this report. This is through the end of fiscal year 22, and on the general sales tax, the revenues were $1,166,110 over the budget projections. Capital improvement sales tax was $1,364,966 over the projected figures. The park sales tax, $658,201 over the adopted budget for 22, and the public safety tax, $251,003 over the adopted budget for FY 22. The pages behind that are, again, detail for each of the individual sales taxes that we collect, and this is what you would see on a normal basis. And the final report will be the estimated fund balance. And this is for FY 22 because we've not finalized with audited figures. Right now, the estimated ending fund balance for 22 unassigned is $4,371,830, which is 11.52%. And keep in mind, those figures do not reflect any unexpended budgeted expenses or any revenues that we took in over the budgeted projections. So the anticipation will be that that number will increase once we finalize everything. We would expect to include these reports on a normal basis, and if there's anything else we feel we need to bring to council to draw attention to, we just add them under the same topic of financial update. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Mrs. Perry? Discussion? Councilman Spencer?
I just want to thank you for doing this. I think it really does kind of get everybody on the council kind of at the same jumping off point and understanding of our budget fiscal numbers. So again, thank you for doing that.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? All right. Thank you, Mrs. Perry. Item 8, announcements by mayor, council, and staff. We have our 4 standing committees that we will run through. We have online Councilwoman Wiseman with administration.
Yes, our regularly scheduled meeting is supposed to be this week, but we are going to have that next week instead, provided we have an agenda.
Thank you, Councilwoman Wiseman. Finance,
No update tonight, thank you.
okay. Public safety,
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to thank Councilwoman Ward for chairing the public safety meeting during my absence last week. So thank you.
You're welcome.
and public works.
Yes, we'll be meeting next week, Thursday the 12th, and if you're interested in parking, I do believe that will be on the agenda.
Thank you. And I'll give my announcements. I do want to congratulate Councilman Fitzwater, who is running unopposed in the next election. So I do want to be the first to congratulate you on that, and look forward to the next 4 years. So congratulations to you. You're welcome. The election is Tuesday, April 4th. And so with that, I will turn it over. We have another announcement from Mrs. Sinzi.
Yes, thank you. The city is currently preparing its 5-year consolidated plan for the use of community development block grant funds. We generally receive about $300,000 a year. It's about $1.5 million over the course of 5 years. We are due, so we are currently doing a public engagement process that dictates where that $1.5 million worth of funding goes for the next 5 years. That public meeting is going to be Wednesday, January 11th, from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. here in this room in the City Council chambers. The public may attend in person or virtually. There will be a WebEx option. We also have a 15-minute survey that's available. It's on the front page of our website if you scroll all the way to the bottom to news and headlines. And that survey is what we use to kind of figure out where that funding should be allocated for the next 5 years. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Okay, we'll see you Wednesday, January 11th. Any other council announcements tonight? Item 10, presentations from the gallery for specific bills or resolutions. We have nobody signed up. Is there anyone that we missed? Okay, and item 11, consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved to consent agenda.
We have a motion and second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 12, bills introduced 2022-90.
An ordinance amending Chapter 16, Article 3, Section 16-31 of the City Code related to the Commission on Human Relations, structure of commission, quorum, compensation.
Mrs. Strope.
Thank you. So this amends the residency requirement for members of the Human Relations Commission by allowing up to 2 members to be non-residents of the city. It does not change the total number of members. This has gone through the administration committee.
Thank you, Mrs. Strope. Any discussion, comments? Councilman Spencer?
Yeah, I guess I just have some questions and some concerns on this, mainly from a standpoint of consistency of how we handle boards and commissions. It is my understanding that we've already have one member that is allowed to live outside the city limits. When did that happen? I know it wasn't the 10 years that since I've been on the council, but.
Yeah, I'd have to verify it, but I really think that it was put in that way. I really do. So remember, the commission was reestablished at one point in time. I don't remember exactly when, but in the 2000s somewhere. It was active for a while, then it went inactive for a while, but I'm pretty sure in that initial time that it allowed one person to be a non-resident. And then since it's came back and has been active, it has allowed for up to one person.
And I guess it's just from a standpoint of, it's kind of a slippery slope of kind of changing processes. And I think it's a bad process to establish. I think there should be some certain privileges if you are a city resident, and that allows you to serve on boards and commissions. And, from my understanding at the administration meeting, Mayor, that you're kind of leading the charge on this, it's kind of disingenuous to say that, we want people to serve on boards and commissions, and then we have active or have applicants that are willing to serve on this particular commission, and they happen to live inside the city limits, but that's not who you want. So can you explain why this should be allowed to happen versus the current structure that already allows one outside resident of the city limits to serve on this commission?
Sure, I'd be happy to. And you mentioned the word consistency among our city boards and commissions, and it is not necessarily a consistent process. Some of our boards and commissions already have slots for 2 potential outside city limits. This would not be the first one. And correct me if I'm wrong, I know there is at least another commission that does allow for 2.
I do think that there is. Cultural arts does, and then there are some that, like I think the animal control, the veterinarian board, they just have to have a business or work for a business within the city limits. The electrical, plumbing, all of those I think are the same way. They don't have to reside within the city limits. So there's certainly, it very much varies from board to board, commission, committee.
Yes, thank you. And that is just the fact that it does vary, is that the needs and scope of the boards and commissions does vary. They're not all consistent across the board, and some have certain requirements, whether it's ward requirements, and some don't. Some have different tasks, and so sometimes finding a diverse background is important. Human Relations Commission in itself invites diversity, and sometimes having that within the city limits, and it doesn't have to be within or without. This seat is potential that it could be. So it doesn't specify that they have to be outside city limits, but it offers that if we need to. And so having that diverse selection, I think, is important, especially for human relations. And so knowing that there are other boards and commissions that do open 2 seats to the potential for outside the city limits, this was nothing inconsistent with what is already out there with our other boards and commissions. So that's somewhat beside the point, but I felt that this was something that, sometimes there are good reasons to expand the scope and allow people. We often hear, and I know Councilwoman Wiseman, who is the chair of Administration Committee, and we often invite people to apply for our boards and commissions, that sometimes there are people who live right outside city limits, or maybe they still live and work within the city. Sometimes we've had people who owned businesses and property within the city. So sometimes there are reasons that they can bring a different perspective that sometimes is valuable to certain boards and commissions. So it's definitely a balance, because we don't want to alienate and say, maybe you do business in Jefferson City, or you come to Jefferson City and you really care deeply about what happens in Jefferson City, but not living within the boundaries. There is still some importance to people that may live on the outskirts of our town, because they still may care pretty deeply. And while I know there are options that they could certainly move into the city, this offers...
Which I would encourage.
Sure, we always do, and we encourage annexation. In fact, some people for these boards and commissions that's something that we can encourage and say, here's... some of them live close enough that maybe they can advocate and get involved and engage in the city, and this is just a way to do that. So perhaps it could encourage growth when we can be inviting and accepting. And Human Relations is one of those commissions in particular where I think there is some value in finding diverse backgrounds of all kinds.
And I would completely agree. I just think that maybe then what we ought to think about doing is just change the scope of Cultural Arts, Human Relations Commission to maybe be a county-city venture, to where the county and the city would bring participants together, and it wouldn't just be solely a city endeavor. And so maybe that's something we could look towards down the road.
That certainly could be, and
so-
maybe a future administration committee meeting, if you would like to bring that topic up. I know Councilwoman Wiseman is on, and I'm sure she would be open to that topic, because I think you really hit the point that certain commissions are more countywide and some are more city-focused, and they each have a unique perspective. Certain things like planning and zoning are very ward-specific, and there has to be an exact balance within wards. Certain ones are more county-focused, and I would agree with you on that. So this is maybe a way to start incorporating that. It's really up to council. I felt like it was valuable, and especially in this case, we have someone that is ready and willing to serve. She lives right outside city limits, and so, we have
But
an
it's
applicant that's
from a-
ready to.
Not from a lack of people willing to serve on that commission. That,
Not always.
But, I mean, currently though, even. You
you
have
know-
applicants that are willing to serve on that. I mean, that's just the testimony I thought you gave at the administrative committee.
There
Right.
there could be a wider pool of applicants, not just for this one, but for several of our boards and commissions. We often will reach out and announce at council meetings, or sometimes even have put press releases out, like we would like more people to apply for our boards and commissions. We don't always have that. And we have turnover sometimes on boards and commissions, unexpected and sometimes expected. People move in and out of state. We had someone on this particular board that was unable to fulfill their term, and so it was kind of a nice fit to replace what was still needed on that commission, especially needing diverse backgrounds.
Sure, and I guess just to go back, I think I'm not in support of it at this time. I just think that we need to kind of have more of a look at thoroughly at all the boards and commissions, to have at least some, maybe going back to some consistency there with the setup and the approach. But, the slippery slope that I look at is, we're gonna be looking at proposing the sales tax on marijuana. Should county residents be able to vote on city sales taxes? so I guess there's, like I said, the slippery slope here that some can reference, other instances where the county should participate in certain things, so, thank you.
And I do appreciate that. And most all of our boards and commissions do have at least one outside city limit space on there, and that predates any of us probably in this room. And that's likely to bring that perspective because there are people who do have a very close ties or interests with what happens within the city. And I think it would be fair to say that that their input is extremely valuable, and that's likely why before our time it was decided that there should be one slot. I don't know that there are any that really don't have at least one. There may be a few that by nature of what they are don't have one, but most of them, there's at least one perspective, and it's kind of good to get that perspective. I think at least I know that we have a council liaison for every board and commission. I try as best as mayor to at least attend or tap into all of those. And so it's nice, and several of you do attend most or all of the boards and commission meetings, but it's nice to have input from all angles, and sometimes having that perspective from those that may not be directly living in the city is valuable to those of us that do. So our goal is just to make the city better, and sometimes I think having that expanded, diverse background on certain boards and commissions, simply expanding it from 1 to 2 is not a big deal because it doesn't even have to be filled by someone. In fact, when I make a proposal for someone, the council could say, no, this person doesn't live in the city. We don't want that person on. So ultimately, you have the control, even if this were to pass. So that could give some confidence that there may be someone that would be valuable to a board or commission. So it gives you that option. And I think anytime you can bring your options open, that's good. Kind of reminds me, we had the same discussion when we talked about even department heads and others living within or out. So I remember several years ago, the value and the boundaries and what are boundaries. And our boundaries are going to grow and change. So we look forward to that. So, yes. Anything else on 2022-90? Councilman Fitzwater?
Yeah, I just wanted to echo some of the comments of Councilman Spencer. And I raised a couple discussion points at the admin committee. I was online, but at the committee discussions. I agree with him. I mean, I was not aware that all of our commissions had someone from the outside. Is that accurate, that we've got a non-resident on virtually all of our boards and commissions?
It's definitely not all. I'd have to look at the exact numbers to see if it's majority or not. But yeah, it probably is majority have one or more.
I mean, we try to do a lot of things here to encourage people to live within our city, and there's certain rights and privileges that come with that. Are there expenses that go with administering this committee, this commission?
Really just staff time.
So we're-
Primarily staff time. There was some money in the budget for the Human Relations Commission, and I'm not sure if that's still in there. But they have not
No.
spent that in the last couple of years, so.
So we're
there was
using city
$500.
tax dollars to, and we've got people from outside the city telling us how to.
Just point of clarification, there was nothing in this last budget, and Sheila's verified, just to clarify, because I wouldn't want it to be, there was years ago, but not recently. Thanks.
We still pay for staff time, don't we?
Yes, there wasn't a budgeted item for the board. I don't think there are for any current boards and commissions. It depends. The council sometimes puts in the budget. Staff time is consistent whether, regardless of who's serving, there is a staff liaison. Thanks.
I just strongly feel that if it's a city commission or city board, that it ought to be represented by people that pay taxes in this community. And I get there's people that come into the community that pay sales taxes, but, we've got the last sentence here, must be a resident of Cole County. Is there anything magic that, could we open this up to the entire state to allow people to participate and broaden that pool of qualified members? I just think we're heading in the wrong direction. We're trying to build this city. We're trying to encourage people to participate here. And if they want to participate in our city government, they need to be a resident of our city. not that complicated. To vote here, you have to be here. And I just think this is a bad policy. I was not, I guess it's my fault, I was not aware it was so broad. I mean, I knew this commission had one, but I just think we're heading in the wrong direction, and it sounds like the slippery slope has already slipped. I mean, we let it go through at some point in the past, and I just don't think it's a good policy.
Thank you, Councilman Fitzwater. I almost want to say, how could you not be aware? I mean, this has been a policy for years. It's nothing new. But again, I've attended so many boards and commissions over the years, and we bring people up at admin. They have applications that's on there. So I'm a little surprised to hear that, but it's nothing new. So honestly, it's a fairly small change in my opinion. We already have several participants from outside of our city. And when you say beyond Cole County, I think that's just being that's a bit much. And I think you're just trying to prove a point maybe, but of course we wouldn't go beyond that.
Isn't that why we're here, to discuss things?
No, I agree.
Staff cannot give us an answer of how many commissions. You're chastising me, I can't get an answer on how many of our commissions. I just don't think it's a good policy. If I need to scrutinize, we get names dropped at admin, approved, move on.
Yeah, nothing wrong.
I will be glad to scrutinize those further. I just don't think it's a good policy.
Nothing wrong with scrutinizing. I didn't mean to sound like that. I'm just giving my opinion on that as well.
I'm giving my
Councilman
opinion.
Deacon?
I'm not challenging anyone else's opinion.
I'm fundamentally opposed. If you want to live in the city, then you have certain privileges that serve on the boards and commissions. If you don't want to live in the city, then you shouldn't really have a say-so. This is our town. If it was a town of 12,000, 6,000, yes, go outside your borders to fulfill the things because it's more of a colloquial thing. But my gosh, 40,000 people and we can't find 5? If we can't find 5 or 7, or 10, however many it's required, then maybe we don't need the commission. I mean, if people aren't interested, I don't want to go outside our borders. We have people leaving town now to move all in the surrounding towns, not even, there's Warsville, Taos, St. Martin's, crossover, Holt Summit, and then they want to come and serve on our boards and commissions? No, this is our town, not your town. Come here, and then you can have a say-so. I understand the professionals, we have to have their input. I understand the tradespeople, we have to have their input because of their knowledge. But just because someone might think they know better what our human relations are when they live outside the county, no, go down to Henley. That's Cole County. They've got an entirely different view of how human relations are. And I'm not being facetious. If you want a true kumbaya with everybody involved, go down to Henley, go over to Eugene, and maybe go down to Callaway County. That'd be interesting.
Councilman Hensley.
Thank you, Mr. Molman. Are there any boards and commissions that are not allowed to have members from outside the city?
I've researched this in the past, maybe for another board and commission, but the answer that I've come up with is if the board or commission is exercising part of the city's sovereign functions, generally it's not going to be a great idea to have people outside the city serving on that board. So planning and zoning, HPC,
Adjustment, maybe?
Board of Adjustment, Parks and Recreation Commission, the professional boards, where the qualifications are tied to professional qualifications, are an exception to that. So the plumbing and electric and the vets and the airport are exceptions because those outside people are tied to their professional experience. So I would say if you're exercising part of the functions that are granted to the city through the Constitution or state statute, then you shouldn't have people outside the city. If it is a board or commission that is purely advisory, then you can. I would say that this particular board and commission falls into the advisory because we have excluded from them their decision-making authority on human relation cases. So cities can assign this commission some quasi-judicial function. We have not done that. We've actually excluded that function from this, and so this is now an advisory board. And so I think this board would fall into that type of board that can have it. And that's reflected in the current makeup where there's, can't be one, so.
So the most that type of board or commission could do is simply recommend things to the city council.
Yes.
And then we would be able to look at it with, and not rely at all on any of their advice or opinion and just take a fresh look.
Yep.
Great, thank you.
Councilwoman Ward and then Spencer.
Their primary function is educational. In the past, they've brought in speakers from out of town, even out of state, and have had educational seminar series type things and discussions.
Councilman Spencer?
Yeah, and just to clarify, I think we need to have a diversity on all boards and commissions, not just Human Relations Commission. Secondly, though, the concern that I've had since I've been elected is that the mayor, your position seems to be an active in times of recruiting people to serve on boards and commissions, even though people have taken the time to fill out the application and take the time to look into and research what they might feel gifted in to be able to serve on these boards and commissions. And so I just have a fundamental problem that people are leapfrogging over others that have filled out the application and been waiting patiently to be a part of those boards and commissions that they've, fill out the application and are willing to volunteer their time. So that's just the bigger issue that I have of this process. And, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Well, I'll continue with that. You said you have a fundamental problem. That's your words. And really the fundamental problem then lies with council. Does not lie with the mayor. It's the mayor's recommendation with approval of council. It is the 10 of you that appoint people to boards. And while I make a recommendation, those recommendations are done at the administration committee meeting every month that we meet. And even if we don't meet, it's sent out in writing. Everybody has those recommendations at admin. They don't come straight to council. And while I make the recommendation, in fact, something I learned when I was a councilwoman for 6 years, and when I served under Mayor John Landwehr, he always consulted with me as the mayor, didn't have to, but as chair of admin, he consulted with me and went through all of the appointees, and I tend to still do that. I still, every month, go through with Councilwoman Wiseman and either email or go through very specifically who we're recommending. So it is a very open process. I give my recommendation, but it's up to council. And at admin, council can confirm or deny, and then it comes to here for a final vote. So I just want to clarify that if you have a fundamental problem, it's with the council recommendation. You have council approval. You don't have to ever go with my recommendation.
With the process that's in place during the administration process where applicants are brought forward, their names are brought forward for 1, 2, 3 positions on a particular board or commission, are all the applicants brought in for those open positions?
Applicants are public information. You all are welcome to look at the applicants anytime.
Do you bring all the applicants' names for the open positions on boards and commissions?
Bring
Or
them
you
to
only
admin.
bring-
Well, we have them.
Or you
Gail
only bring
has
your
the
recommendation?
notebook, and we bring that forward, and
That- you're not
everybody's in
answering the
there.
question, so, thank you.
You want me to go through, maybe you need to be more specific. You want
I'm
me to
asking-
spoon feed the 8 names or 4 names or 1 name that's on a waiting list to the council? You have that information at your disposal, public information. Anybody can get that.
If the
So
administration's committee's responsibility is to bring forth names
it's
to
not.
the council,
It's my recommendation. It's
your
mayor's
recommendation
recommendation.
that you bring to the administrative committee, that then gets voted in the administrative committee to being brought forward to the council. That is the process. My question is, we have 1 position open on this Human Relations Commission. Did you bring all the names and applications to the view of the administration committee?
I bring my recommendation, and
That's
it's
my-
up to you.
that is my
It's
answer.
up to the
That's all I need.
council
Thank you.
to make the decision. And how many times has council asked, is there anyone else on here? They sometimes do. Who else is on this waiting list, correct, Mrs. Strope?
Yes.
I want to be backed up here because I don't want to be put on the spot as if I'm not sharing information. This is all public information. And council, the 5 of you on administration and the 10 of you sitting here, at any administration committee meeting, at any council meeting, at any time, even right now, you can say, who is on this waiting list for any boards or commissions? And that has been asked before. And sometimes we say there's 3 people on the waiting list, we need more. There's 1, there's 2, whatever it may be. And we keep those for 1 year. Councilman Hensley.
Thanks. I have just some procedural questions. Paragraph 6 of our agenda is always called appointments by the mayor, and I thought I knew how this worked, but maybe it's best to find out now. Is there a method for the council to directly appoint people who have not been recommended for appointment by the mayor?
No. The appointment must come from the mayor. The council doesn't have the ability to say no to this, but we'll take this person instead.
Right. So even if someone has submitted an application, and even if all 10 members of the council would support that person, if that person is not put up for appointment by the mayor, it's not happening.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
So council can deny any appointment that I make, and all of them. It's up to council. It's in council's hands. Appointments do not happen through the mayor. Appointments happen with council.
Well, you appoint people, and then we can either approve the appointment or not. We cannot appoint people.
I don't have the authority. I can recommend who I appoint. I can make the recommendation to council. I do not have the authority on my own to put anyone on a board or commission. Correct, Mr. Molman?
Correct. The mayor must name the person, and then the city council has to approve it.
So
But the
they
city
can
coun-
all be voted
But
down.
the city council cannot make an alternative nomination or say no, but someone else. The name must come from the office of the mayor.
So typically, the process would be not typically at a council meeting, although it could be, but typically at administration committee, if this were the case, then council would have a discussion at administration to say, we would prefer that I would appoint someone else. And I will tell you, there are several times when I've taken the input from council on people to appoint for boards and commission. This is not a unilateral, this is who I want. I often have had recommendations from council members. And some of you are sitting here and are nodding your head, and not that I need any backup, but that is something that some of you have brought members forward. And while it doesn't have to be that way, I have taken into consideration when council members do. And certainly if you do, I would hope you would speak up and let us know and have that discussion at admin. These are all open public meetings and open and public list. And
Mayor.
Councilwoman Wiseman.
I just wanted to note that we do spend a lot of time with admin looking at these all these committees. Sorry, I'm hearing a little feedback, so I look funny. But we do send a lot of feedback to you, and I know that we do spend a lot of time going through these people, and it's not just the person that you choose. I mean, in the committee alone, we have denied people, and you and I have said, you know, we need to go through there and really look and see if these people are qualified. I mean, when we're looking at planning and zoning, board of adjustment, we're just not trying to pick anybody. And those are really important committees to this city. So this is something that's very serious to the administration committee.
Thank you, Councilwoman Wiseman. Anything else on this topic? Well, with that, I would expect that at future admin committee meetings, we will have a re-energized amount of support, and I always do welcome input from council members if they have people in their ward. I don't know how many times, and I know you've heard me say it sitting here at this podium, that if anybody has anyone, please encourage them to apply, and I often take consideration from council members. So with that, I will look forward to that in the future, right, Councilwoman Wiseman as the chair of admin. Okay, item 2022-91.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, excuse me, accepting and approving the final subdivision plat of Emily Lane subdivision, Section 3, a subdivision of the City of Jefferson, Missouri.
Mr. Barron.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And so this bill would approve a final subdivision plat for a 3.4 acre tract located at the end of Emily Lane. The property is highlighted in blue up on the screen. This property was voluntarily annexed into the city in October of last year. At that time, a zoning district of RA1, which is a multifamily residential zoning district, was applied to the property. The RA1 district allows or permits residential units up to 4 units per building, so fourplexes and below. As mentioned, the property is located at the end of Emily Lane. Emily Lane currently dead ends with a temporary turnaround constructed at the end of that street. The final subdivision plat shows a cul-de-sac bulb being constructed at the end of Emily Lane, so finalizing that street, and 3 lots being plotted off of that cul-de-sac bulb as shown up on the screen. And so this is the subdivision plat that would be approved via the council bill. The preliminary plat that was approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission also included a development plan showing what the developer, the property owner, intends to do with the property. And that is construct a total of 6 triplexes, 3-unit residential buildings, 2 per lot, so 2 of them on each of the 3 lots as shown up on the screen. They wouldn't be tied to that specific development plan, but I think it is helpful to know what the developer's intentions are. This item was recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission at their December 8th meeting on a vote of 8-0. There's no public hearing required for subdivision plats, so this item is scheduled for bills pending at the next council meeting. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Barron or discussion? Okay, thank you. 2022-92.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an agreement with Bartlett and West in the amount of $190,500 for the conceptual design of the High Street Viaduct.
Mr. Morash?
Thank you. As clerk indicated, design contract with Bartlett and West, a little under $200,000. That would get us a preliminary design is our hope for the High Street Viaduct. It'll go through some options there, look at especially how we terminate the bridge on the east end. Right now, it doesn't meet current standards. Once we get that, we're hoping by July to have some kind of preliminary design nailed down, then we can use that plan set to look to obtain grants to help build this project.
Thank you, Mr. Morash. Any questions or discussion? 2022-93.
An ordinance amending the code of the City of Jefferson, Missouri pertaining to transit system fares.
Mr. Morash?
Thank you. This bill introduces a code change to change the transit fares. Basically, they all go up approximately 50%, so $1 fare would go up to $1.50. That's the regular fare. There's a whole rate table of the various fares at transit in your packet that you can look at, but then we try to do an estimate of what perhaps that may generate. We think it's around $60,000 in additional revenue. If you remember, transit for operational wise is around a $3 million enterprise at the city. This would help offset some of the input costs from the general fund to transit. The recommendation actually came out of our transit advisory committee, went to Public Works. Public Works then recommended forward to the council. So since then, we've went through a process of obtaining input, which we have some of that. We have that in your packet you can review. Had some really good input on that. And then this will also require an actual hearing at our next meeting. So that's been advertised before this packet even, just so we can meet the timeframes for the advertisement requirements when we do something of this nature. And so next meeting, there'll be a public hearing about this, and be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Morash or discussion? Okay, thanks again. Item 13, bills pending 2022-88.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an $80,336 agreement with Bartlett and West Incorporated for the Basin 10 Westview Sewer Main Upgrade Project.
Mr. Morash?
Thank you. As clerk indicated, again, another design contract with Bartlett and West for sanitary sewer design in the Westview Heights subdivision. This would be done in conjunction with a Cole County street and stormwater project. Allow us a little savings for restoration doing it this way as our sewer runs near the road there.
The contract was $80,336 for design, and be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Deliberation, discussion? Roll call, please.
Deacon. Fitzwater.
Aye.
Hensley.
Aye.
Kimna.
Aye.
Lester.
Aye.
Schreiber.
Aye.
Spencer.
Aye.
Spicer.
Aye.
Ward.
Aye.
Wiseman.
Aye.
Bill passes. 2022-89.
An ordinance imposing a sales tax at a rate of 3% on all tangible personal property retail sales of adult use marijuana sold within the city of Jefferson, Missouri pursuant to Article 14, Section 2.6, subsection 5 of the Missouri Constitution, subject to the approval by the voters of the city at the general municipal election to be held on April 4th, 2023, designating the form of ballot and directing the city clerk to provide notice of said election.
Mr. Molman.
Thank you. This bill would send to the voters of the city of Jefferson a question as to whether or not to approve a 3% sales tax on the sale of adult use recreational marijuana in the city of Jefferson. I provided some additional information today. Actually, very informal poll shows quite a few communities that are doing this. Also, another question that came up was whether or not the city may set the sales tax lower than 3%. The city can. The Amendment 3 allows for a sales tax of up to 3%, so that means that we could have set it lower. I tried to find some information. I was not able to find any instances of cities that were contemplating setting it lower than the 3%, but once again, that was a fairly limited informal poll trying to find that particular information. Many cities are taking this exact question up this week. In fact, most seem to be doing it tonight. There are a few cities that have already approved it that I could tell, probably most notably the city of Kansas City. Based on estimates from the industry, this could raise about $150,000 annually per site, but that is based on an assumption that recreational sales would be equal to medicinal sales. I don't know if that's a valid assumption or not. We think that that number is probably a little aggressive, but we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Molman. Any questions or discussion? I don't know which hand was up first. Thank you, Councilman Hensley.
Thank you. Ryan, do we charge city-specific tax on products like alcohol or cigarettes or any other, do we charge any other, sort of vice tax?
So not the city directly. There is a special cigarette tax that a part of that revenue goes directly to cities. So we do have some revenue share on a vice tax on cigarettes. There is no, state law does not authorize any type of special tax on alcohol. I believe so. We don't because we can't.
Mm-hmm. And was there a specific state tax on recreational?
Yes, there is. So Amendment 3 allows for a additional 6% sales tax to be charged by the state. That is for state uses to, I think, run the licensing program. And I think there's some additional earmarking that goes along with that.
But unlike the cigarette tax, none of that would flow down.
None of that flows down to the cities. That all stays in the state coffers.
So if we were to approve it, or in any community where this is approved in Missouri up to the 3% mark, I mean, there would be a 9% additional tax on top of your other standard.
Yes. So these all stack, and to further add additional information related to a previous question, counties are allowed to impose that as well. So that could be an additional 3%. So in addition to the just general run-of-the-mill sales taxes on any retail sale, there could be up to an additional 12%. So 6% state, 6% city, or sorry, 3% city, 3% county.
So there would be places in Missouri where well over 20%,
Well over 20%.
and even around, and even in parts of the state that don't have such aggressive taxing schemes, still close to 20%.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, generally the lowest end you'll ever see in any community is a base 6%.
Right.
And so 6 plus 12 is 18.
Yeah, and there's no other product or class of products that falls into this category. In terms of what this city can, how the city can tax the product. Right. Sorry. I do like thorough consideration of the question.
I think that is correct.
Okay. Yeah, I'm of sort of.
Well,
yeah,
no,
go ahead.
I am terribly sorry.
Okay.
Franchise fees. So, colloquially, franchise fees, but utility taxes. Utility taxes are similar. So there is a sales tax that is imposed on utilities, and then there is an additional local tax that's imposed on that. It's the GRUT tax, and so those sales impose both the regular sales tax and an additional sales tax. So that would be a special category where it's kind of taxed on two levels.
Sure. Oh yeah, yeah. I wasn't looking at any. It just generally things that can be taxed statewide.
Yeah.
And locally.
That was the one category
Yeah.
where you kind of see a double level of taxation.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I was looking mostly at sort of the broader, for lack of a better word, sort of vice category of products that can be sold and taxed. I'm of sort of two minds on this at this point. I mean, I generally don't like that type of scheme. I don't know that. I don't know what the point of it is supposed to be necessarily, unless it's simply raising additional revenue. And I really don't know what the positive benefit of it would be, aside from potentially raising some additional revenue. That being said, for me personally, this was part of the advertised deal with this constitutional amendment, and everyone who paid attention to the vote, and anyone who voted on it or had any interest in it, knew that this was an aspect of it that would come up shortly after passage. So while I might not personally be in favor of this type of scheme for taxing certain products, it was part of the proposal overall, and I think the voters should have a chance to make their voices heard on whether or not we institute this tax here.
That's a very good observation. Let's not kid anyone. The entire amendment, including the 3% local sales tax, was drafted and proposed by the marijuana industry. So,
fair point. Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Spencer?
Thank you. How many dispensaries do we have currently inside the city limits?
Two.
Is there a limit to the number of dispensaries for recreational marijuana?
So there is not a local limit. The limit is going to be imposed by the state licensing scheme. And so the chances of the state licensing scheme allowing for a very large number of dispensaries in any one particular community is pretty small. Could we see an additional one or two additional non-medical recreational marijuana? Yes. Would it be likely to be any more to that under the licensing scheme? Probably not, but could there be an opportunity? Sure. If that's how the state licensing scheme shakes out for some odd reason. So no, and I do not believe that there is an ability for cities to impose that. It's the amendment really says the number of facilities in any particular city is up to the state.
Okay, and with the current 2 that we think we have for medical marijuana dispensaries, for clarification, do they kind of have a leg up to get the recreational? Because that's my understanding, they kind of somewhat do.
Yeah, I think
So
I think that's a fair characterization where essentially the existing medical marijuana facilities have the first ability to convert their medical marijuana facilities into what's being called a comprehensive marijuana facility, where they do both a medical and recreational business, and they're kind of the first in the door toward the state licensing scheme.
So with our population, probably 2 would probably hit the ceiling, maybe third, possibly.
Maybe a
but
third.
more than likely
I
not.
would be surprised if it's any more than that. But
And have we, I broached the question of our last council meeting about the county, because I thought I had to understand that they could, because they had a generic ballot language floating around there. But have we had talks, or I've only had like one conversation with one commissioner.
so I recommended that needed to happen at an elected official level as a more effective means of communication. I believe there has been some discussion, but I can't speak to any
I think I
elected
know the
officials
answer,
there.
but- okay.
Yeah.
And I know that these dollars are going into the general fund, so they really can't necessarily be allocated or dedicated to, let's say we want to flow these tax dollars to our, judiciary, our municipal courts, our prosecutor area, for law and law enforcement. We would have to do that during our budget process, period.
Yeah, that would be the appropriate way to make those allocations.
And I guess I would just, I know we're always cautious about tying the hands of future councils, but in the grand scheme of things, any action that we do ultimately somewhat ties the future hands of councils anyway. But I think it's pretty important to not, to kind of have a spirit of intent for these revenue dollars to be going to those areas. I just don't want it to be a free-for-all during, if I'm reelected the next time, during our next budget process, that, those dollars will be, going after for other areas. So as long as we're somewhat in agreement to that, then that would alleviate some of my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Spencer, I have spoken with Commissioner Sam Bushman and relayed to him that there would be the discussion tonight that council would make the decision to move forward to put that on the ballot. So he was also aware that Ryan and the county attorney have had some preliminary discussions, and Sam said that no decision at the county level had been made yet. But I did want you to know that I did speak with Sam, Commissioner Bushman.
And that was the same conversation that I had with the county attorney. Is there still no decisions have been made?
Thank you. Any other, Councilman Fitzwater?
Well, I was just going to reiterate the point that the councilman made, that I think it's important for the citizens that, assuming this goes through and goes on to the ballot, that we are going to have increased cost here for enforcement, so that whether the tax passes or not, city's going to have additional expenses. So, whether that sways the vote, that's up to each individual, but it is going to cost us more. I think Chief talked a little bit about it maybe at the last meeting or at Public Safety, so, and that's a big consideration.
Thank you, Councilman Fitzwater. I would wholeheartedly agree with those comments, and I fully support this measure. And I don't know if there's anything that needs to be added from the public safety perspective. I think you summarized it well. Anything that you need to add, Chief? Okay, thank you. Any other questions, discussion, deliberation? Roll call, please.
Fitzwater,
Aye.
Hensley.
Aye.
Kimna.
Aye.
Lester.
Aye.
Schreiber.
Aye.
Spencer.
Aye.
Spicer.
Aye.
Ward.
Aye.
Wiseman.
Aye.
Deacon.
Aye.
Bill passes. Item 14, nothing on the informal. Item 15, resolutions 2022-39.
A resolution authorizing the city to execute a contract with Jefferson City Regional Economic Partnership.
Mr. Molman.
Thank you. I'll start off by noting that Mr. Luke Holtschneider from JC Rep is here to field any questions that the city council may have for him. But this this resolution would approve a services contract with the Jefferson City Regional Economic Partnership for economic development services in the amount of $185,000 to be paid in 4 quarterly payments. I do note that there is a typo in the contract itself. On the first page of the agreement in paragraph 4, there's a reference that the sum is $120,000 and no cents, with a reference then to the numerical $120,000. That is a typo. That should be should read $185,000. That amount has been previously allocated, budgeted in the current fiscal year budget, and the amounts in quarterly amounts in A, B, C, and D are correct. So I apologize for that typo, but this would need a floor amendment to rectify my mistake.
Thank
Be
you.
happy to answer your questions. Once again, Mr. Holtschneider is here as well.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Molman? Councilman Fitzwater.
Just to get it on the floor, I would make the amendment that we change that editorial change to change 120,000 to 185,000.
Second.
Motion and second to amend. Any further discussion?
Yes, I'm in favor of this, but, and I know there's reporting quarterly, but I think it'd be good if an annual type of report could be done maybe late August or September from J.C. Rep as far as what's been done with this money.
Okay. Thank you, Councilman Lester. We can certainly have that contemplated with this discussion. So we have a motion and second for the amendment to change to the 185. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So now I would entertain a motion to take up Resolution 2022-39 as amended. Is there a motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, further discussion? I know we've had Councilman Lester's suggestion. Any other discussion on the resolution? Okay, seeing none. And I know we have Mr. Holtschneider. Any questions for Mr. Holtschneider? Okay, roll call, please.
Hensley,
Aye.
Kimna,
Aye.
Lester,
Aye.
Schreiber,
Aye.
Spencer,
Aye.
Spicer,
Aye.
Ward,
Aye.
Wiseman,
Aye.
Deacon,
Aye.
Fitzwater.
Aye.
Resolution passes. And thank you, Mr. Holtschneider, for being here this evening. You attend several of our council meetings regularly anyway, and work very well with the city. And I know we had some suggestions on some reporting and maybe some enhancements, and we can certainly talk among council members and staff and you about the best way to continue getting information and full reports to the council. Okay, thank you very much. Item 16, presentations from the gallery on other topics. No one is signed up. Did I miss anybody that would like to speak? Item 17, any council and staff discussion of presentation topics? Item 18, any new business? Councilman Spencer.
The mayor beat me to the punch this evening of congratulating Mayor-elect Ron Fitzwater, but I guess I can be the first council member to congratulate you as mayor-elect. And I just look forward to you bringing your leadership to the mayor's office. And I know that there's a lot of issues that are on the horizon, whether it be fiscal or workforce housing or economic development. And obviously with your chairmanship of Public Works, you know the critical need of our infrastructure and stormwater and wastewater issues. So I appreciate your willingness to step forward and take on this big responsibility, and thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Spencer. I'm sorry.
It's all right. It's good.
Councilman Spicer.
It's fine. Going off of what Councilman Spencer said, really looking forward to working with you too, Ron. I know it's We got some challenging times coming ahead of us. And, I think it's gonna be good moving forward. Congratulations.
Any other new business? Item 19, approval of December 19th, 2022 closed session minutes. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Kimna,
Aye.
Lester,
Aye.
Schreiber.
Aye.
Spencer.
Aye.
Spicer.
Aye.
Ward.
Aye.
Wiseman.
Aye.
Deacon.
Aye.
Fitzwater.
Aye.
Hensley.
Aye.
Bill passes. Item 20A, pursuant to Section 610.021 of the revised statutes of Missouri, the chair will entertain a motion to go into closed session to discuss the following. Item I, attorney-client privilege, Section 610.0211. Item 2, real estate, Section 610.0212. And Item 3, sealed proposals, Section 610.02112. Is there a motion to approve? Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Lester,
Aye.
Schreiber. Spencer. Spicer. Ward.
Aye.
Wiseman.
Aye.
Deacon.
Aye.
Fitzwater.
Aye.
Hensley.
Aye.
Kimna.
Aye.
Motion passes. We'll go into closed session in this room in 2 minutes. I'm sorry, 2, 3, 5, up to 5. Okay. 3. Thank you.